Welcome back to the KDPG Sunday Edition. I'm John Delano. How will we get around Pittsburgh in 50 years? What will our city and its neighborhoods look like? Those are the questions being asked by Pittsburgh's Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, as this week they started taking ideas for the Pittsburgh 2070 transportation plan. It's asking people to think way into the future, how to build a sustainable transportation system, and what sort of green infrastructure will get us there. Our guests this morning are experts looking at sustainable construction and infrastructure. Dr. Kent Harries is a professor of structural engineering and mechanics at the University of Pittsburgh. And Dr. Rajkumar is a professor at Carnegie Mellon and co-director of the General Motors CMU Vehicular Information Technology Collaborative Research Lab. Boy, that's a mouthful. And we're also joined by Joe Smito, editorial writer for the Post-Gazette. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. We appreciate it. Let me ask you first, before we head into the future, can you give us your assessment of the state of transportation in southwestern Pennsylvania right now? Kent?
I think the state of transportation, bridges, roadways are about what we might expect for something. You know, the average age of a bridge in this region is about 55 years old. What state are we in at 55 years old? Aging rapidly.
Some of us are okay.
Some of us are doing all right.
But I get your point.
There are a lot of issues. There's insufficient funds, as Cheryl mentioned, really just insufficient to keep up with maintenance and repair, let alone the new demands on the system.
Right. Raj, the same question. Generally, how would you assess our current transportation systems?
We are constrained in southwestern Pennsylvania by the geographical terrain. Yes. We have rivers, hills, tunnels, and even if we had the money, we do not have the space to add new lanes, if you will. So as the amount of vehicles actually increases, congestion only goes up. Right? So we are constrained by our physical geography.
You hear these surveys that are always ranking Pennsylvania's roads and bridges very badly. You know, how, in your opinion, do we stack up compared to other states?
Well, on the national level, we're theoretically 49th out of 50.
49th out of 50 in terms of bridges?
Poor rated bridges.
Wow.
That said, we are also in the Northeast, so we have an old infrastructure. We have a highly constrained infrastructure, which has a lot of issues. We were talking about landslides recently, things that don't show up in North Dakota, for instance.
Right.
And we have a very large infrastructure, right? 25,000 bridges. There's 600,000 in the nation, and you know, Pennsylvania is one of the largest in terms of its inventory. Aging inventory, large inventory, the constraints that you're talking about. It all adds up to requiring more funding, more maintenance.
And yet, you know, Pittsburgh is really on the cutting edge, Raj, of new technologies for transportation in the future.
So, John, these are exciting times for Pittsburgh to be in Pittsburgh. We know Pittsburgh as the city of champions from the 1970s. We used to be the kings of steel globally, and then the steel industry completely kind of died away. And then the depression kind of set in Pittsburgh. But today, Pittsburgh is transforming itself into a technology hub. Companies want to be here. Multiple companies have moved in here, particularly in the transportation space for vehicles that drive themselves.
Yeah.
Aptiv actually is moving into a new building, has been around, I guess, has been hiring about 150, 200 engineers, if you will, looking to expand. We have Aurora, which basically has raised about $500 million as a big operation here, in addition to their operations in California. We have Argo AI, which has actually raised a few $billion, $1 billion from Ford, $2.5 billion from Volkswagen, and they are completely based in Pittsburgh. Uber started its advanced technology center operations for self-driving robo-taxis, if you will, in 2015. They continue to have a major operations out here, and CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, where I am from, is considered to be a birthplace of self-driving vehicle technology, dating literally back to the early 1980s. Very exciting times.
It is exciting, and I have covered a lot of these companies that you mentioned, and the fact that they are working hard on self-driving vehicles is truly exciting. But they are still going to have to drive on roads and bridges. And if our roads and bridges rank 49th in the country, you have to wonder, you know, maybe all these cars are going to go out to the Southwest. Kent, clearly we got to do something about roads and bridges in order to be the self-driving mecca.
Well, there's another side to it. It's a supply and demand. And I'm concerned when I hear things like, well, we can't put more lanes through tunnels or more lanes under. That's absolutely true. So let's address the demand side. Let's look to more public transit, and the self-driving revolution, if you wish, is certainly also part of that potentially. Right. Why do all of our families have to have 2 and 3 cars in some instances? And so it's not only the supply side, building the bridges, it's the demand side. Let's try to cut that down a little bit, the same way we've done with energy and whatnot.
Yeah, let me just sort of describe that, because I think people's eyes watching this could glaze over when we talk about what you are talking about.
It happens a lot.
Not just with you, believe me. I'm focused on what does it mean when you say self-driving vehicles can help us with our transportation issues. I mean, I have the image, and you tell me if this image is wrong. Having a car, 2 or 3 or 4 cars in my driveway, I just go on my phone and I press a button, and in 1 minute there's a car there to pick me up and take me wherever I want to go. And when I'm done wherever I'm at, or I'm done with the work there, I press the app and a car is instantaneously there without a driver to take me back home or wherever. I mean, that's what we're talking about in terms of not in reducing the number of vehicles that we all have and that we're all out driving.
Well, I think you can also add it. Don't forget commercial vehicles, and self-driving commercial vehicles are a very big piece of this puzzle.
This would be commercial.
Well, no, I'm sorry, commercial trucking industry type of goods movement, and that is a huge, whether it's nationwide or even local as well.
Right.
That's part of a distribution network that can also potentially
you talked at the opening of the segment, or at the opening of the show, about the city transportation plan. I mean, the purpose of plans like that are to sort of coordinate supply and demand and get everybody sort of on the same page as to how this new transportation economy or transportation landscape is going to operate.
And the transportation landscape doesn't operate on its own in its own little bubble, right? I mean, we've got housing and whatnot, and if we continue to look at suburban housing and growing in the suburban regions, we're going to have more transportation demand coming into the core. We've got a lot of core housing that's underutilized right now. That's also part of it, and that's part of a transportation plan, and it has to be part of a transportation plan. Pittsburgh does it well with its neighborhoods. I mean, we love that. We can walk almost everywhere from our homes and get what we want, and we're maybe not unique, but pretty close to being unique in that sense.
Rogers, let me ask you, as you envision the self-driving vehicles, the automated vehicles, how do you see Pittsburgh 20, 30 years from now?
In my wildest dreams, John, as you mentioned earlier, Pittsburgh becomes the center of the self-driving vehicle universe. Our vehicle, not only are the vehicles driving themselves in and around Pittsburgh, the technology was developed here, it's being centered here, and anybody who wants to basically enter the space, work in the space, look to Pittsburgh, look up to Pittsburgh, and want to be part of the activity going on here.
Right. Well, we talk about cars mostly, but I think there's some research going on here, correct me if I'm wrong, into self-driving locomotives and self-driving buses too, so it's not just cars.
Oh, no, very true. I guess anything that can move can be automated. So that includes trains, buses, taxis, and trucks. And companies are looking at the space. I guess while we are talking about 2070, you would expect that all vehicles out there will be self-driving in that time frame. But people should be cautious as well. This revolution is not going to happen overnight, right?
I think that's a very good point. I was speaking to the CEO of Argo AI when they just had the announcement with respect to these dollars from Volkswagen. You cited, I guess, $2.5 billion.
Yes.
Amazing sums of money. And, you know, on behalf of Pittsburgh folks, I was expressing a little bit of concern, because there is a lot of concern about these experimental vehicles out on the roads injuring people and ultimately getting in use. We're really at least 4 or 5, maybe even 10 years away from some of this stuff, right?
We are at least 10 years away from having fully self-driving vehicles. There's nobody in the car, but the car is driving itself. I should add that both the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the city of Pittsburgh have put in place an extensive list of safety procedures that all of us in the state and the city have agreed to make sure that testing can happen to help advance the technology, but at the same time, the public safety is not being compromised.
Right. Kent, 50 years from now, are we going to have a brand new style of bridge, or will the bridges and roads still be the same?
No, if you imagine what Pittsburgh's going to look like 50 years from now, we have however many bridges locally. Look at the downtown core. Most of those bridges that are here today are still going to be here 50 years from now in operation. And so that's I think one of the challenges is that whatever self-driving and autonomous vehicles take shape, they have to work within that existing infrastructure. And that's true of any infrastructure, water, sewer, other issues that are going on locally, but particularly the bridges and roads, and particularly because of the constraints the geographic restraints, that's not going to change.
So the interstate highways are still going to be there?
They're still going to be there.
Because, you know, you have this sort of Futurama notion of these cars driving up in the air, you know, flying all over the place, which I think would be pretty dangerous too. But that's not coming.
But they would likely still follow the same kind of corridor system that we do now.
Yeah, flying taxis have been a dream of many people for a long time. I think we'll be waiting for quite some time.
Not in our lifetime, that's for sure. So, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in and sharing with us. This has been very informative, and it's always kind of fun to think about the future and where we might be going. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you again. We'll be back in a moment when the KDPG Sunday edition continues. Stick with us.